Hi, this is Len Edgerly. Welcome to the Kindle Chronicles podcast for Saturday, August 20th, 2022. I am recording this episode in Ocean Park, Maine, where a couple of days ago, my grandson Jake, who is 8 years old, joined me for a lively discussion with Mark Cheverton, the author of a series of books set in the video game Minecraft. Now, Minecraft is a game in which you build things with simple blocks, and there are endless permutations available for someone who is as knowledgeable about the game as Jake. It's a very popular game. I think Microsoft owns it at this point. I myself have created a diamond house in Minecraft overlooking the ocean, and Jake and his brother Ryan keep giving me ideas for ways to improve it. How this came about, talking to Mark, was one day last month as we were playing what we call Screens on the Bed, or SOTB, and that's a time when I, and sometimes Darlene joins us, we play video games on the bed, on iPads, iPhones, with Jake and his brother Ryan. And as we were doing that this particular day, Jake mentioned a book that he loves set in Minecraft. And at first I thought he was talking about the game itself, but it gradually dawned on me that it's a book, and he's read over 20 of these books about a boy whose Minecraft username is GameNight999, and that's Game Night, KNIGHT 999. In the conversation you'll hear, he's called just Game Night. So I was intrigued. I asked Jake if he might be interested in my reaching out to Mark for an interview. I didn't want to get his hopes up because I wasn't sure that I would hear back from him. I left him a note on his website at markcheverton.com, and I heard back like right away. He said he'd be glad to join me and my grandson for a conversation. Jake and I worked pretty hard in preparing. We had questions. The original plan was to alternate back and forth, but you'll hear that it got kind of enthusiastic, and we departed from our plan, which usually happens in an interview, but it was fun. And as I was getting ready to talk to Mark, I did some research, and I learned that he was born and grew up in Southern California, about 15 minutes from Disneyland. Maybe that's where he gets some of his creativity from by osmosis. He earned a BA in physics from California State University at Fullerton. He taught high school physics and math, and while he was doing that, he went on to earn a master's in physics at California State University at Long Beach. He taught for 10 years in Southern California, then ended up in New York State and taught physics at the high school level for another 5 years. He had a career change that saw him going to work at General Electric as a research physicist for conducting research in topics including machine vision, laser welding, system automation and control, holography. On his website, he explains how he came to write 24 books set in the world of Minecraft. As you'll hear him describe, his son is the one who introduced him to the game. They played it a lot. Mark bought a server for his son to use, and this enabled his son to create some amazing structures in the game. It took a long time to create all of these buildings that he did, and that's when the story takes kind of an upsetting turn. Here's how Mark describes it on the website. One day, some other kids were able to get onto the server, probably because my son or one of his friends gave out the IP address. These new kids destroyed everything that he'd built, griefing, as it's called. They leveled everything to the ground, obliterating months of work. The next time my son logged in, he saw his creations destroyed, and he was crushed. Then, to make matters worse, these kids posted the video of their griefing, his server, on YouTube. This was the ultimate teachable moment to talk about cyberbullying. I tried to answer my son's questions about why someone would do this, what kind of person would take pride in destroying someone else's creation, but my answers just fell flat. That's when I came up with the idea of teaching my son through his favorite thing, Minecraft. I wrote the first book called The Invasion of the Overworld, and it taught kids about cyberbullying and how it affects others, as well as hammering away at the importance of friendships. And I used Minecraft as the tapestry on which the lesson was written. You'll hear more about that in the interview. One thing that might be helpful to understand, in Minecraft, there are two main modes that you can play. I always play in what's called creative mode because I'm not getting eaten up by zombies and creepers and all these characters that show up. And I have unlimited resources, and I built a big diamond house, which in the other mode, which is survivor mode, you have enemies that you have to battle, and you have to mine your own building materials. So it would have taken a long time to find all those diamonds for my house. So creative and survivor mode. Jake, of course, plays survivor mode at a high level, and I'm still in creative mode, which seems a little safer. He and I shared my Blue Yeti microphone. One thing I wish I had done, I thought there might be a way for he and I to share earbuds or something so that we would be listening to Mark in our ears. What happened was, because we were listening to him on the speaker of my computer, whenever he was speaking in the raw audio, there was an echo. So I've spent quite a bit of time last night trying to eliminate that. But once in a while, you'll hear kind of an echo when he's speaking. We reached him at his home in upstate New York, and under the plan of alternating the questions, Jake had the first question. Okay, Jake, what's our first question?
When do you eat lunch?
When do I eat lunch? So I work part-time now, and I write part-time. And I work as a physicist for General Electric. So I eat lunch at about noon while I'm working, and probably when I'm writing, the same thing.
Okay.
I'm a creature of habit.
Grandpa, you are up.
Oh, I have a question now. Okay, and so in the books, there's a son, Game Night 999, and that's based on your real son. And do you also have a daughter who...
I don't have a daughter. I added that in. Her name was Monet.
Yes.
Right.
Just to add another character, but I don't have a daughter. Just one son. Okay.
This is a question that my daughter, Rue, who's Jake's mother, when she found out we were going to talk to you, her question was, when your son was playing Minecraft actively, did you limit the amount of time he could spend during the day playing Minecraft?
Yeah, because he was doing schoolwork and stuff, and so he had to do his homework and have all of that stuff done, and then he did a couple hours a day, probably.
A couple hours on Minecraft?
Yeah, unless I was using him as my Minecraft consultant while I was writing.
Aha.
So I would run all my plots by him, and he would say whether that makes sense or that's stupid.
Would you actually read drafts to him or, as you were going along?
Well, I would just talk about what's the idea for the next book.
Yeah.
And here's what the final battle would be, and does that make sense? And sometimes he'd say, yeah, Dad, nobody would believe that. That's dumb. Do it again.
No, I want to know, what was the real last battle? Because it said like you had it like 5 times.
The what?
The last battle. In like the book, it happened like 5 times.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah, I never really had that, I guess, did I?
Yeah. I probably say it might have been the destruction of the Overlord, I would say, was the last one, I would say.
I think maybe I meant it to be at the end of the 6th book, which was Battle on the Ocean Shore, I think.
Yes, because...
I think that's what I meant as the last battle. But then I kept mentioning it, and then I kind of forgot about it.
Yeah.
And so it just disappeared. But I'd also have my son... There's typically, game night would build some kind of redstone contraption at the end of the story to help him defeat the bad guys. And I would always have my son build that for me because he was really good at redstone.
Is redstone a kind of building material?
Yeah, and it's like electrical circuits.
Yeah.
Oh, you knew
I was
that.
thinking of building you a light switch for your diamond block house.
Yes, I have a house made of diamonds, which Jake informs me he'll know that you're in creative, not survivor by that.
Yeah, that's right.
And but it's kind of a rudimentary building. But what were you saying would help my house?
Adding a light switch with lights.
And I would use redstone for that?
Yes.
It's just like electrical circuits. It's really a remarkable learning tool for kids to learn how to do electrical circuits.
All right.
Oh, yeah, my next question is, what was your favorite thing to do as a kid?
As a kid, I liked to read. I read a lot of science fiction and fantasy books. And I always had one or two books going at the same time.
What's my next one? Oh, yeah. I read the first book, and I've kind of sampled partway through the second. Fear seems to be something that, it makes the books very readable because there's a lot of scary situations, and game night is dealing with fear. And I guess I was going to ask you, how do you deal with your own fears? And do you have a way of thinking about how to handle fear that you've passed on to your son, perhaps through these books or just as a helping with life?
Certainly when I was my son's age, I didn't have a good way of dealing with that. At his age, I was bullied and picked on. And so I didn't have a good way of dealing with that other than avoid it by changing the situation and being somewhere else.
Yeah.
As an adult, when I encounter fear and anxiety in the workplace, the way I deal with it is I work the problem, and I work really, really hard, 10 or 12 hours a day, until I eliminate that source of stress. I have poor stress coping skills.
So the answer is to do the work to solve the problem that's generating the stress.
To eliminate that stress or fear, yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I do it.
Let me jump in here, Jake, and then you get ready for your next one. That's you experienced bullying, and you've written that the genesis of the books were a terrible situation of griefers bullying your son and destroying his creation. Did that event affect you particularly intensely because you had a similar situation as a boy?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was furious just because as a father, somebody was attacking my son, right? And I felt powerless because you don't know who these kids are. But I'll tell you something that I've shared with a few people, that my son found those kids' server. They destroyed my son's server and came back over and over again, made videos, said terrible things about him, foul, vulgar things, and put it on the internet, on YouTube. And then months later, my son found their server, and we went on, and, well, I wanted to destroy it. And my son said, no, that's not the way we should deal with this.
What did he do instead?
He ended up finding one of the owners on the server, and the guy recognized him and apologized to my son.
Wow. Was it a young player or an adult? Or
well, who knows, right? I assume it was a kid based on watching the videos that they would make and their voice. But they said, oh, yeah, I guess that was not good of me. And part of it is, if you want to go around destroying people's server and then you have your own, well, you're just asking for payback, right?
Yeah. And that payback leads to payback, and that payback leads to... You get what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Exactly right. And my son said, violence is never a solution to violence.
Wow, he had a chance to teach you that lesson.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But for that, you could have been a griefer.
I know, right?
All right, where are we on our...
I have one.
Oh.
Did NPCs, do they eat lunch, breakfast, and supper?
Well, I don't think I ever talked about NPCs eating anything.
And now let's say what my audience is not going to know what NPC is. What is
so an NPC is a non-playable character. So they're kind of things that are built into the game, like a cow or a sheep or a villager. And I don't think I ever thought about how do they stay alive in Minecraft, right?
Yeah, they certainly got to eat.
I mean, there's food, right? You can make food the players eat, but I never thought about the NPCs. Do they eat?
Wow.
I mean, they got to eat unless...
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I never thought of it.
Well, there's an idea for the next book.
I know.
Diary of an NPC. We don't eat anything. Did time pass differently in Minecraft than did it in the real world?
Yeah, I think if you're playing the game and you go from sunrise to sunrise, it takes 20 minutes in the real world.
Yes.
That's how it works in the game.
Well, it's probably like 10 minutes and 5 seconds if you have like a bed to sleep.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And so I was asked many times, so there's a character named Hunter who's a girl. And many people would email me and say, you should have Hunter and Game Night get together and be boyfriend and girlfriend.
I remember, I feel like they probably should have added that sooner.
But the thing is, I thought, well, that's kind of cruel, because if Game Night leaves and stays in the real world for a day, how many years is that in Minecraft for Hunter?
Like 100.
I know. And so I thought, well, that's kind of cruel.
To be like away for 100 years.
Yeah, I'll see you in 100 years later. So I always thought that was kind of cruel, and so I never did that.
Okay, let's see. Oh, did you want to ask this question here? That was one you came up with. It was interesting.
So in the book, your son, it sounded like there was a lot of quotes from Sun Tzu, and I was wondering, were there really Sun Tzu quotes on your son's teacher's wall?
No, I made that up. But I really like reading Sun Tzu's book, The Art of War, and I like his sayings, and so I liked including them in the story. I was hoping to expose kids to that.
The one I know the best is probably attack the enemy when you are least expected.
Right.
That's the one I know the most.
Have you used that in real life? Like with Ryan, your brother?
Yeah, because we were on a way back from McDonald's. And we got, like, these, like, things, I don't exactly know, that we use some, like, chainsaws, and when he wasn't looking, slash with the chainsaw thing.
Just like Sun Tzu.
There you go, just like Sun Tzu.
Didn't see me coming! Didn't see me coming, didn't see me going.
Okay, so now I have a question. Oh, your job at GE, you're an inventor. You have some patents.
Yep.
Did you ever invent a digitizer?
I did not invent a digitizer, but I would get frequently emails from really young kids saying, is the digitizer real?
And what does the digitizer do in the book?
And it makes a copy of you and digitizes you and pulls you into the computer program that's running.
I have a question. If let's say a pizza app was on it, would you get pulled into the pizza app?
I think you'd become slices of pepperoni or something. I don't know.
I hope it would be ham and pineapple. That's my favorite.
But here was always the challenge. A young kid, a 7-year-old, asked me, is the digitizer real? How should I answer?
Oh, what do you think? What do you think he should say to that question?
I could say no, and then it kind of crushes their imagination.
Or you could say, maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
That's what I would say, I would say something like, I was told that I'm not allowed to confirm nor deny.
Oh, that's very similar.
So, just to kind of keep the mystery alive.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like they probably would have heard about it by now if you ask me.
Oh, if
Word
it was
gets
real?
around quicker. I feel like if...
yeah, I would have read about it in Wired by now, I think.
Yeah, it probably would have been in the New York Times.
Yeah.
But you know, they have those things. If you're going to 3D print something, I work on 3D printing at GE.
Uh-huh.
And you can take a thing and set it on a turntable, and it turns it, and a laser scans its surface and creates a 3D model of it that you can send to your printer, except it's not alive. So don't try it to your cat.
What's is there a particular invention that you created at GE that you're most proud of, or that kind of made the biggest impact over the years?
I don't know, because a lot of them, we create inventions for the purposes of blocking our competitors from doing something.
I see.
So it may not be an important revelation in technology, but it'll make it hard for the competitors to do something. So I would do a lot of machine vision and camera stuff and optics and image analysis.
I have an idea for next time you're creating something. A giant floating cupcake.
There you go.
Giant floating cupcake.
Why would that be a good thing to make?
It's a giant floating cupcake.
Oh, yeah.
What's bad about that?
Enough said. I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, you had one about... Why don't you ask this question there?
So, in the book, it says you played a game called, like, Wing Commander, I believe.
I loved Wing Commander, yeah.
And that's a real game?
Yeah, they actually made a movie of it. It was a terrible movie, but they made a movie about the evil Kilrathi, I think the villains were called, the alien race. It was basically a flying game, but set in space.
There ever been any talk of your books getting made into movies or TV series?
There is, I understand, a Minecraft movie in the works. And the guy who made Toy Story, I think that's that movie. The producer's named Roy Lee, and I heard about the movie, and so I started stalking him online to figure out a way to contact him.
Yeah.
And I got a hold of him through LinkedIn and talked with him about my books and about Minecraft and about some things to think about. And I mean, I sent him an email, and Sunday afternoon I get a phone call on my cell phone, and it's Roy Lee on the phone.
Whoa.
Like, holy mackerel. And so I was hoping to get him interested in my books, and I eventually sent them to him, and he didn't read them. He gave them to his son, I think, to read. And I learned later, well, he can't really look at the books, because then if his story is similar to mine,
yeah,
I could cry foul. Usually they get sent back to you without anybody looking at them. And then they also like to have their own story so that they don't have to pay an author anything, because authors can be a pain in the butt. If you're super famous, like J.K. Rowling, well, you got to pay her, right? But for something like this, Minecraft is so open-ended, they don't need me. They can make their own story. But it would have been cool, right?
Yeah, yeah. What's your next question?
So, I remember I believe, Confronting the Dragon.
Uh-huh.
They meet the Lightcrafters, and then in Saving Crafter, they see the Lightcrafters again, Treeburn and Grassburn. So when does Game Night meet Treeburn? Because all I can remember is Grassburn.
I don't remember when he meets him.
Yeah, so maybe because it sounded like he knew him pretty well.
I honestly don't remember.
Yeah, me neither. Because probably it sounded... Because I remember Grassburn, though not really Treeburn.
Let me tell you a funny story about those guys.
Yeah?
I was finishing Confronting the Dragon, and the first book, Invasion of the Overworld, and Battle for the Nether were out. And the publisher called me and said, "Hey, Mark, sales are really good. Don't kill the bad guy. We need another series." And I thought, okay, well, they're going to kill the dragon. And so I thought up about the Light Crafters and the Shadow Crafters. And I knew about Herobrine. And I wanted to start including Herobrine. So I had Herobrine appear at the end of that first book. And you can see him on the cover of Confronting the Dragon as well. And he's in the back. He's really tiny, but you see his glowing white eyes. You'll have to look and see. And that's why I included those, because the name Herobrine, I thought maybe that guy makes heroes, but because his last name is Brine, he's evil.
Yeah.
And then the good guys end with Bryn, and so Grass Bryn makes grass, and Tree Bryn makes trees. And then at the end of book 6, the publisher called me again and said, "Hey, sales are really good. Don't kill the bad guy. We need another series." So Herobrine escapes again. And they said it at the end of book 9. And I said, "Come on."
I want to kill the bad guy.
He's gotta die. And so I killed him off at the end of book 9.
I thought he's out of the picture in Game Night 999 versus Herobrine. I thought that was like
So-
the last.
That's the last one he's in, and they have a big battle at the end of that between Game Night and Herobrine.
Well, Game Night and Herder.
Game Night and Herder, you're right, because Herder gets infected. You're exactly right.
Are you correcting the author on his own story here? Come on.
So, another thing.
All right,
Okay.
you've asked 5 questions in a row. When do I get to ask a question?
Okay, mister.
All right.
Okay, mister.
Yeah, but I'm curious, kind of the quick summary of the business story. Did you self-publish any of these? Did you have a publisher right from the start? I mean, you sold more than 2 million. It's huge.
So-
but what's the path to getting there?
So when my son was about 4 years old, I decided I wanted to write a book because I'm working at GE. I see these guys who are very successful and they're risk takers and they're very confident and they're not afraid of confrontation. They're not afraid of trying something hard, even though they might fail. And I'm the opposite of all of those things. So how will he learn to be like that so he can be successful if he doesn't learn it by example from me? So I thought I'll write a book and maybe he'll learn it from my characters.
Oh.
And so I wrote 4 science fiction books. They were all colossal failures. The first book was rejected by 253 people until I gave up. And I wrote book 2 and then 3 and then 4. All of those were a disaster. Nobody wanted them. And I learned that writing is a craft and you have to learn the craft. Just like if you want to be a doctor, you don't just decide one day I'm a doctor, right? You got to learn the skills. And I didn't know the skills yet, but writing all of those books taught me a lot. And I read a lot of books on writing, but I was ready to give up on writing. And when my son was cyberbullied while he was playing Minecraft, and I told them this isn't his fault, and he didn't understand that. Victims of bullying frequently think it's their fault that they were bullied. So I wrote the book to try to teach him what kind of person would do this. I made Game Night a bully at the beginning, so you could get inside his head and understand what would somebody be like that does that to other people. And then when I was finished, we read it at bedtime, and he got it. He said, "Oh, I understand, Dad. Those kids are jerks." He said, "They're probably bullied by their older brothers." I said, "Exactly right."
Was he like 7 at this point, or how old was
Yeah.
he when? Yeah.
He was 7 or 8. And so then I self-published it just for fun. Because, well, why not? You know, it's not going to go anywhere. I've failed at being an author 4 times already. Why would I think this is successful? But at the time, there was only one other Minecraft novel on Amazon. All the rest were how-to manuals. And kids were hungry for this. And the parents probably saw it and thought, my son will read this and get off the computer.
Exactly.
And so they started buying it, and it reached, every book has a bestsellers ranking where you're ranked from the number 1 book that's for sale. When my book reached number 29 on the bestsellers ranking, that's when a publisher and a literary agent called me.
They called you.
They called me, yeah.
That's not the way it usually works.
Yeah, the publisher called me and said, "Hey, you want to publish?" I said, "Sure." And then the agent called me and said, "Hey, you need an agent?" I said, "Sure." And they said, "We'll find you a publisher." I said, "You don't need to. I already got one."
I already got one.
And so they made a contract, and boom.
And they
There it is.
published all of them since?
And they published 24 of them. Yeah. And I went down to meet the editor who I'm going to work with. And I said, and so they bought the first book. I think the first 2 books. And I was working on the 3rd book already. And I had mentioned, oh, I'm working on book 3. And in fact, I just got the cover from the artist and I showed it to him. And then I walked over to the office of the agent who was also, this was in New York City. By the time I walked from lunch, walking 20 minutes to the agent, they already had a contract there for me to sign for book 3.
Oh, boy.
Because they recognized, this agent, which was Skyhorse Publishing, that Minecraft was going to be a big deal in literature, and they wanted to be at the forefront. And they were.
That's a great story, and I think the sort of grown-up learning there is you did model taking risks when you decided to be a writer.
I know it was incredibly ironic, right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Huh. Great story. Okay, Jake, what's next on your list?
So, in System Overload, there was a glitch. Could the glitches be sometimes good? Be like, I don't know, maybe like maybe just do like the zombies couldn't move, or the
I suppose they could, but I've never encountered a glitch while I was playing Minecraft that helped me. It's always something happens and all of a sudden a creeper's right next to you and you don't know how they got there, and then they're blown up. So I never encountered a glitch that helped me, only ones that hurt me.
Yeah. That's the way with most glitches.
Yeah.
There was only one good glitch, I would say. If it rained diamonds,
yeah.
Oh, then I could build my house. I could add a wing to my house.
Don't need to
There you go.
All right, I have to ask him my total newbie question here, because we have this thing, Jake and his brother Ryan, who's 2 years younger, we call it Screens on the Bed, and we all get
SOTB.
Right. And so we take 20 minutes and we all have a tablet, and they're usually all playing Minecraft. So that's how I got into Minecraft, playing Screens on the Bed. And I built this great house, diamonds, and they each helped me. Jake, you put in a fireplace for me. Ryan showed me how to fly. And then Ryan took my iPad. I guess I used my iPhone Max. And he said, "Can I just play on your Minecraft for a while?" I said, "Sure." He went so far away from my house I couldn't find it. And
yeah,
so
that happened.
I spent the next week flying, sadly and pathetically, looking for my house. And I think it was at the time we were scheduled to talk to you. I said, would there have been an easier way to find my house than just randomly flying?
I had an idea. It was a good idea.
Wait a minute, let's hear Mark's idea.
So the easy way is, before you lose it, you use the set home command.
Oh.
And then all you do is type /home, and zoop, it teleports you back to wherever you set home.
Got it.
What I usually do is I build a really big, tall tower, and I put torches on it.
Yeah, I did that. That was in the book. So I built a tower, but I don't have torches. Jake said I should put torches on it.
Yeah, because then it's easier to find at night.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Or use a nice potion.
Hey, you have to get over here and talk into the microphone here. All right, I know.
Or night vision potion works.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. You've got a really disciplined work habit in your writing. Are you still writing 8 hours a day on certain days of the week?
Yeah, probably 6 hours a day. I work Monday through Wednesday, and then I write Thursday through Sunday. And I typically get up in the morning, and I'm at Panera at 7 o'clock when they open, and I write till noon. And then I come home and have lunch and hang out with my son if he doesn't have class. He's in college now. And then I write in the afternoon as well.
Are you always at the same table at Panera?
Well, usually, but they always have very few electrical sockets in Panera because of people like me who buy an iced tea and sit there all day and use up the table. So I've learned if I come at 7 or 7:30, I can get my table in the corner where no one will bother me and I'm just plugged in.
There should be a plaque there someday saying Minecraft world was created here.
I know. There you go. Yep. Maybe when they make the movie.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It'll start with this corner table here.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that, some parents love the idea that now my kid's going to be reading a book. It
Yep.
does seem like it's really notable that Jake, I was so delighted when I first heard him talk about your books because, he is a good reader, but his mother's got a concern. Is he playing too much video games? He should be reading more. Is the learning of how to read and really enjoy reading different than playing a video game at a high level like Jake is doing? Is it complementary?
I'd argue that the reading is certainly a more beneficial activity, right? I mean, a lot of computer games are great puzzles that work your mind, but I think certainly reading is a better activity. If you look at literacy rates for kids, when boys hit, I think it's fourth grade, boys stop reading as much as they did, and they start playing sports and playing outside and doing and computer games. And girls continue to read books there. And so boys from fourth, fifth, sixth on, you see they don't read as much as girls do, which is why when you look at young adult books like The Hunger Games, like the Twilight series, majority of the books in young adult have a female protagonist because the market is girls that are reading them. And you see very few with male protagonists in that genre.
Are you imagining that boys are more likely to read your books because they're so interested in video games?
I bet that's the case. I've never seen any demographics on how it breaks down, but I bet that more boys are reading my books, and I get tons of emails from parents saying, thank you for these books because my son never read, and now they're reading all the time because it's about Minecraft.
When their side retires from the softball field, they're sneaking a few chapters of your book on the bench as they're getting ready to bat.
And of course now there are a lot of books available, right? But the interesting thing is the graphic novels are selling more than regular books. If you go into your Barnes & Noble, and I bet if you go into the kids section, you'll see a massive wall of graphic novels and illustrated books, because that has become far more prevalent than just books like mine.
Do you think that's a sort of degradation of the reading skill, just sort of a reading light because it's got the graphics?
Yeah, maybe, or it could be that it's short. I work with a school in Nebraska on creative writing. And at the end of the year, they put together a book of all their stories, and we get it printed up for each kid. And that's the favorite book for kids to read in that teacher's library, because all the stories are short. They could read one story, be done, and put it back. Versus a 200-page novel is going to take you weeks. And kids are not as likely in her class to do that.
Yeah. Which
kind of worries me.
Yeah. It's a troubling trend, I think.
Yeah.
Jake, any other questions? I think we've got most of the ones. You talked about NPCs. Were you going to ask, or was I going to ask it? Are you still playing Minecraft once in a while?
Yeah, I haven't played it for quite a while. For multiple updates, I'd say I haven't played it at all. I've been too busy working and writing on other books.
Let's finish up about your latest work.
I asked a question.
Okay, go ahead. Then I've got one after that.
Why didn't you use tridents and crossbows?
Because none of that was in Minecraft when I was writing these.
Oh.
My last book was 2017, 2018.
That was 2 years after my brother was born.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thanks for making me feel old. So that was when my last Minecraft book was published. Do you remember when they made the cities in the end? Where the big houses, and you could get the dragon's head and you can get the elytra?
Yeah.
That just started after my last book was published.
Because I barely even knew about it till a year ago. I always thought the end was just you defeat the Ender Dragon, yay! You don't go back.
I know. There was nothing else to do. And in fact, I was going to name my third book The End, because the first book was the Overworld, second book was the Nether, the third area in Minecraft was the End, and I was going to call it The End. And the publisher said, no, you can't do that because people won't look for book 4. So come up with a different name.
You're writing about Giants, is that series available, or what's your current?
So
and
I
future
wrote
work?
one book about giants called The Giant's Giant, and I couldn't get any publishers interested because they told me fantasy is not selling well with middle grade kids. I don't know if that was true or that was to soften the blow that this book wasn't good enough. Who knows? You don't know. So I self-published that, and it's done very poorly. And part of the challenge with self-publishing is when somebody types in fantasy novels into Amazon, they're listed by sales rank. The best-selling one is at the top because Amazon wants to sell more of that. My Giant's Giant, which has sold 100 copies or something, it's on page 23.
Oh, my.
And so no one ever sees it. And so the only way to become visible there as a self-published author is to run Amazon ads, which I tried. And who's looking at those ads? Is it the 10-year-old boy that I want to have buy it? Probably not. It's probably the parents, right? And the parent's not going to see that book and go, I'm going to take a risk and buy that book for my kid to read because they don't know if they'll like it or not, right? So it's very hard to self-publish in the middle grade area, I've found, for me anyways.
You obviously have a very committed follower of your books here in Jake, and he's heading into third grade. Any advice for him as a reader, or where he might think about going next, having gotten so grounded in your books?
There is a series called the Ranger's Apprentice series. I don't remember the author. And they're fantasy books. And there's like a million of them, just like 12 or 15 or something like that. And those are fantastic books. The author is just so great with the characters and with the environment and the clever fantasy angle that he writes about. And those are really, really good books. And I've read many of those and really enjoy them.
That's a good
book. And
book.
those are a great thing.
Cool.
But
I also got another book series I actually have two book series I got into, actually.
What's that?
Have you ever heard of The Bad Guys? The Bad Guys?
No, I haven't heard of them.
Is that graphic?
No, they're like chapter books.
Oh.
And what's the other one?
The other one is, have you heard of Wings of Fire?
Oh, yeah, I just saw something online about those. Those look really interesting.
I got the first 5 from my grandmother.
Yeah, those are very successful books.
I'm still on the first book. They're really nice. And my friend Charlie, who lives right next door, happens to be an expert on it. And a lot of my friends like it. It's a very good book.
Well, what I would challenge you to do is to try to write your own story.
Is there one? I'll start brainstorming.
Because I've had about 1,000 kids send me their stories, and I post them on my website.
I saw
on
that.
The fan fiction page.
And so there's 1,000 there? Oh, because
probably about 1,000. I think I lost some when I had to migrate from an old version of software to a new version or something like that. But I think there's around 1,000 of them there.
And kids as young as Jake are writing fan fiction?
Yeah, they're not really long. It doesn't matter how long they are, right? It's their story.
We can submit it right at your website?
Yeah, so you can send me an email and just send it to me, copy it and paste it into an email, and then I reply when I post it to give you a link to it so you can find it. Or you can just search for your name on the fan fiction page and find your story. And kids will leave comments, and I make sure all the comments are respectful and positive. And anybody who's disrespectful or being mean, their comments get deleted. So it's a safe place for kids.
Yeah.
My character is probably going to be a meatball.
A meatball. There you go.
And maybe a thing of pasta.
There you go. What I've learned through studying is kids that read a lot are better writers, and kids who write a lot are better readers. And so the more you can read, the better it helps you later on in life.
We are going to remember this. I'm going to play this to you every 2 years so that you will keep this into account. Well, Mark, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate you.
Well, thank you for doing this. This has been fun.
What?
First, I need to tell you one joke we had.
Oh.
So, me and Len were thinking about on the porch yesterday, and we realized we were doing question marks, and I realized we're writing questions to Mark, and we're using a question mark.
There you go. I had a friend do a talk speech to text thing on his phone, and he said, "Do you have a question mark? And it got it right.
Very good. That AI is getting better and better. Okay, Jake, I'm going to try to do a screenshot so we get the three of us here. Come sit right here.
Okay.
And Command Shift 3. Are you all right? So, all right, you're pretty well framed, and Mark's there. Here we are. There. That's our. That'll be in the show notes, and
awesome.
I'll do links to your website and stuff like that. Probably try to get this up tomorrow. I'll send you a link once it's up.
Great.
Yeah, so much fun. Jake and I have been speaking with Mark Cheverton, the author of 24 action-adventure novels set in the digital realms of Minecraft for kids 8 to 13 years old. Thanks very much, Mark.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation. After we'd stopped recording, Mark told Jake and me that he is working on a book that he hopes will come out next year titled Facing the Beast Within. His son has struggled with anxiety, and Mark's new book will show what it's like to have anxiety and what are some strategies to cope with it. He is drawing on the work of child psychologists and integrating their insights about anxiety into the story. I asked him to let me know when it's available for a possible return visit to the podcast. I have to say it was a real treat to do this interview with my grandson. Over the years, I've done a number of interviews with members of my family, and I hope those stay safely in the cloud for a long, long time. When Jake is my age, I bet he will enjoy hearing the intelligence and enthusiasm in his 8-year-old voice as he talked with an author that he loved as a boy. One of my favorite moments was when Jake, toward the end, was so into the conversation that he called me Len instead of Grandpa. It fit how I felt about the experience because at a moment we weren't grandfather and grandson. We were just two guys who loved books and playing screens on the bed, doing Minecraft with his brother Ryan. Good times. Next week, I am scheduled to interview Abdulrazak Durna, who last year was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature by the Swedish Academy. His newest novel, Afterlives, will be released by Penguin on Monday, August 23rd. I've read an advanced review copy of Afterlives, and I have to say I was transported by the story. It's set in colonial Africa, where European nations prior to World War II fought each other with devastating effects on generations of Africans. And it's also an unforgettable love story and an example of the high art of the novel, a form still capable of opening new worlds and bettering this one. Before I go, and since my podcast, now in its 15th year, is still named The Kindle Chronicles, I want to alert you to a big sale on Kindles that's going on at Amazon.com. You'll find a link in the show notes at thekindlechronicles.com. The Kindle Paperwhite, which is how I'm reading Kindle books these days, is 21% off the regular price of $140, so now it's available during the sale for just $110. The basic Kindle, which usually costs $90, is available for $60. That's a savings of 33%. And the top-of-the-line Oasis, which is what Darlene is using, is available for $200. That's a 20% savings from the usual price of $250. So if your old Kindle needs a replacement or you have some other reason to shop for the best e-reader in the world, in my humble opinion, now is a great time to check out these deals. And if you use the link in my show notes, you'll be helping the podcast with some Amazon Associates commission revenue without adding anything to the price of your new Kindle. Maybe I'll use it to buy Jake his own Minecraft server. Only after checking with his parents, of course. That's it for this week. Thanks for listening.